Good morning, everyone. I hereby call to order this morning the 18th meeting of the Public Utility Commission for calendar year 2013 in celebration of Veterans Day. I know we're a couple days late, but I would like to introduce Wendy Yohe, a PUC employee and a veteran of the United States Navy, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Wendy?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all. Before we get seated, I'd ask that you join us. Very tragically, this past week, we lost one of our former colleagues, Commissioner Rhodes, Joe Rhodes. Commissioner Rhodes served this commission from 1988 to 1995, and he served in the capacity of vice chairman. He's a former state representative. The bottom line is he served this commission and this Commonwealth with distinction, and I'd ask that you join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. The first item on this morning's agenda is the approval of the minutes of the October 17th public meeting. And I'm proud to introduce Commissioner Cawley as the editor of the minutes. Commissioner Cawley.
Thank you, Chairman. I have reviewed those minutes and move that they be approved as submitted.
Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. It's a pleasure to welcome to the podium to begin this morning's public meeting Ms. Cheryl Walker Davis. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
May it please this honorable commission, on behalf of your various offices and bureaus, we present for your consideration and disposition the following agenda items, commencing this morning with matters on behalf of the Bureau of Audits. It is recommended that the commission adopt the recommendations appearing on page 1 pertaining to the release of audit reports and proceedings involving PPL Electric Utilities Corporation's transmission service charge, as well as their smart meter rider.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Office of Executive Director, it is recommended that the Commission adopt, on behalf of the Office of Competitive Market Oversight, the recommendation to release guidelines for electric generation suppliers pertaining to pass-through clauses and the appropriate use of fixed price and variable price product labels.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to matters on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance, in omnibus fashion, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the items commencing with the application of the City of Philadelphia on page 3 and continuing with all items appearing on pages 4, 5, through and including the first item at the top of page 6 pertaining to the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement versus Gene Pulcinelli, TA American Lenders Service.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
We recommend the adoption of the staff recommendation in the complaint proceeding involving Emory Blackshear versus Pico Energy Company, noting, Mr. Chairman, your joint statement along with Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you. I'd like to have our joint statement entered into the record as if it's read in its entirety. Before the Commission here this morning are the exceptions of Emory Berkshire to the initial decision dismissing his formal complaint filed against Pico Energy Company. As of the date of Pico's answer, Mr. Berkshire's account balance stood at $19,822.44, with almost $2,800 in late payment charges alone. Simply put, Pico should not have allowed this complainant to accrue such an enormous balance. Doing so places, in our view, unreasonable burdens on other utility customers who are responsible for paying their bills. The record shows here this morning that the complainant managed to avoid termination through filing numerous disputes with the company and obtaining 9 medical certificates. During this time, the complainant had an extremely poor payment history, making only 8 valid payments over the course of the last 4 calendar years, with several payment attempts being returned for non-sufficient funds. Despite this, Pico chose to keep honoring the medical certificates, which I find appalling. The Commission's regulations clearly state when a customer on a medical cert has not met their obligation to equitably make payments on all bills, the number of medical certificate renewals for the customer's household is limited to 2 30-day certifications filed for the same set of arrearages. Additionally, a utility always has the right to petition the Commission to vacate a medical certificate even before the limit of 3 medical certificate expires if the customer is not meeting their payment obligations. So, in a nutshell, why didn't PECO follow these regulations and take proactive steps to mitigate a $19,000 plus arrearage? Further, in addition to allowing this customer to abuse the medical certificate procedures, PECO gave Mr. Blackshear 5 different payment arrangements and settled 1 formal complaint, all of which allowed Mr. Berkshire's already substantial account balance to continue to grow to an outrageous amount that we see here this morning. Let me conclude by saying, given the facts in this case, we can only conclude that PECO did not perform its due diligence with respect to this account. The fact that Mr. Berkshire was able to accrue such a high balance is exceptionally egregious, given the fact that PECO personnel was tasked with monitoring accounts with high arrearages. We'd like to remind PECO here this morning and all of our electric and gas utilities and water utilities that they have an obligation and a duty to the well-paying customers to prevent accounts from accruing such high balances. We'll move forward with approving the joint statement, and I need a second here this morning.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the joint statement of myself and Commissioner Whitmer.
Continuing with the presentation of agenda items on behalf of the Office of Special Assistants, with regard to the formal complaint proceeding involving Ron Carson versus PECO Energy Company, there is the motion of Vice Chairman Coleman.
I'd like to recognize Vice Chairman Coleman for purposes of his motion. Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd ask that my motion be entered into the record as though I read it in entirety. Before the Commission for disposition as to complaints, petition for reconsideration of the decision to dismiss his complaint filed against PECO following an evidentiary hearing. In his petition, the complainant requests that the Commission set aside the initial decision so that he can obtain counsel and re-prosecute his case. Upon review, I don't believe that the complainant has satisfied the legal standard for granting reconsideration. Specifically, I don't believe that the complainant's alleged confusion surrounding the nature of his hearing and his desire to obtain counsel, both of which were raised in the first time at the hearing, warranted granting reconsideration. Therefore, I move that the petition for reconsideration be denied consistent with this motion, and that the Commission's Office of Special Assistants draft an opinion in order consistent with this motion.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Sorry.
Continuing with the presentation of agenda items in omnibus fashion, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the items commencing with the recommendation pertaining to Frank Resitano versus Duquesne Light Company at the bottom of page 7, and continuing with all items appearing on pages 8, 9, 10, and 11 through and including the joint petition for approval of interconnection agreement filed by Windstream PA and Lumos Networks.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, it is recommended that the Commission adopt all items commencing with the recommendation and the application proceeding involving IDT Energy at the top of page 12, continuing with all items appearing on pages 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 through and including the application filed by PEMA with regard to Huntington County's 911 plan.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to matters on behalf of the Law Bureau, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation in the proceeding involving PPL Electric Utilities Corporation proposed transmission service proposed transmission service charge reconciliation, noting the statement of Commissioner Whitmer.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like my statement entered into the record as if I'd read it in its entirety. This is a conflict statement for one of Team Whitmer's members. Shelby Litton Ketty was employed by a law firm during which time she served as counsel of record for the PPL Industrial Consumer Alliance and of the above referenced proceeding. And to avoid any impropriety arising from her previous employment, I wish to note that I have not been advised in any way by Ms. Litton Ketty regarding this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the conflict statement from Commissioner Whitmer.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the remaining item on page 17 with regard to the staff recommendation in the proceeding involving licensing requirements for natural gas suppliers.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
At the top of page 18, in the proceeding involving a petition by Columbia Gas of PA, Inc., there is the motion of Vice Chairman Coleman.
I'd like to recognize Vice Chairman Coleman for purposes of his motion. Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you, Chairman. I would ask that my motion be entered into the record as though I read it in its entirety. On January 24, 2013, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission approved the settlement of a matter involving Columbia Gas Transmission LLC's base rate levels and other issues related to the repair and maintenance of its pipeline system. Under the terms of the settlement, Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania received a refund slightly in excess of $5.9 million. Consistent with the Commission's policy in similar cases, these refund proceeds are normally returned to residential and non-residential PGC customers in the form of a credit. However, in 4 relatively recent cases, the Commission has approved requests by Columbia Gas to use the residential share of refund proceeds to supplement its budget of its hardship program. In a petition filed at this docket on June 28, 2013, Columbia proposed to use the entire share of the residential proceeds from this settlement, an amount in excess of $2.5 million, to fund the hardship program over a 5-year period. The Commission's Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement objected to this proposal. The Commission agreed with the Bureau's position, finding that the amount to be diverted from customer refunds to the hardship program was significantly in excess of the amounts authorized in the prior case, which we viewed as de minimis. The Commission issued an order on August 16, 2013 that denied the request to supplement the hardship program with these refund proceeds. On August 30th, 2013, Columbia Gas filed a petition to amend our order. Columbia Gas has submitted a new proposal which now proposes to use $600,000 of the refund proceeds to supplement the budget of its hardship program. The amount is based on the average of the sums approved to supplement the hardship program in the 4 previous orders, rounded down to the even number. I agree with Columbia's position that its petition presents a new proposal that satisfies our standard for granting our reconsideration or amendment of prior order. The prior 4 cases involve the allocation of the entire residential share of the relevant settlement proceeds. I find that the revised proposal is in the public interest and should be approved. Therefore, I move that the petition for amendment of Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania, Inc. be granted and that the Law Bureau prepare an order consistent with this motion.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendation appearing in the next item involving the petition of MedEd to waive Commission regulations to facilitate a new website design.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation in the proceeding involving a petition for declaratory order involving enterprise rideshare, noting the statement of Commissioner Whitmer.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before the Commission is the petition of Penrac, Enterprise Leasing of Philadelphia, and Enterprise Rent-A-Car of Pittsburgh, seeking a declaratory order that their van pool operations in Pennsylvania are within the scope of the Ride-Sharing Act and beyond the regulatory jurisdiction of the Commission, or alternatively seeking a waiver of the Pennsylvania Code regarding employee commuter van pooling. In its petition, Enterprise Rideshare states that it has received numerous expressions of interest from individuals and groups interested in a van pooling program in vehicles rented by Enterprise. While I applaud Enterprise for attempting to fill a niche in the transportation market, it is clearly offering common carrier service by motor vehicle by publicly holding out itself and offering point-to-point transportation service to the public at large for compensation as prescribed by the Pennsylvania Public Utility Code and the Commission's regulations. Enterprise is seeking customers from the public at large for its for-profit van pool business, unlike a company employer who provides service only to its employees on a nonprofit basis. Since Enterprise holds itself out and offers point-to-point transportation service to the public at large for compensation, I agree that Enterprise's proposed services are not restricted to a defined, privileged, and limited group. In addition, Enterprise has requested a declaratory order that the Commission does not have jurisdiction over its proposed services pursuant to the Ride-Sharing Act. However, the Commonwealth Court has held that a third-party provider of transportation that is a for-profit entity does not fall within the penumbra of the Ride-Sharing Act. Therefore, Enterprise's proposed services do not constitute ride-sharing exempted from the Public Utility Code as described by the law. Although the facts of this case do not support the exemption or waiver as requested by Enterprise, I continue to be a proponent of new and innovative business models for all utilities. In this case, I agree that van transportation is beneficial to the public in terms of traffic, parking, highway congestion, and carbon emission reductions. However, the Commission's regulations are clear as to when ride-sharing services are jurisdictional in order that the transported public is safe. Having said that, I invite Enterprise, as well as other similarly situated transportation entities, to continue to offer creative options that will assist in the safe transportation of the public. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting Commissioner Whitmer's statement.
Continuing with the presentation of agenda items on behalf of the Law Bureau, it is recommended that the Commission adopt all of the items appearing on pages 19 and 20 through and including the recommendation pertaining to the delegation of authority involving motor carrier abandonment and discontinuance.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Office of Administrative Law Judge, it should be noted that the sole item appearing on page 21, that being the formal complaint proceeding involving Jenny Carter Harris versus Philadelphia Gas Works, has been postponed until public meeting of December the 5th. That concludes the presentation of regular agenda items. Turning now to the carry-in agenda. Page 1 of the carry-in agenda. It is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation pertaining to Herman Reimer Gas Company.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Also, on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendation pertaining to La Mexicana Express Service, LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendation at the bottom of page 2 of the carry-in agenda pertaining to the tariff supplement filed by the Pennsylvania American Water Company Wastewater Division, proposing to add Victory Brewing Company to its special bulk rate tariff.
So moved.
Noting the statement of Commissioner Whitmer.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like my statement entered into the record as if I had read it in its entirety. Before the Commission today for approval is the wastewater tariff supplement of Pennsylvania American to add Victory Brewing Company to the Mittal special bulk rate in its tariff. As a proponent of Pennsylvania industry and the beneficial use of all of our natural resources, I am on record supporting and recognizing the work of our utilities to attract and retain businesses in the Commonwealth. Here, Pennsylvania American proposes to serve Victory at a rate that represents a savings of almost $2,000 a month for the Chester County Craft Brewery. The addition of Victory's facility in the rate base will also allow Pennsylvania American to provide rate relief to Coatesville wastewater customers beginning in January of 2014 at no additional cost to Pennsylvania American or ratepayers. Approval of this transaction certainly represents a victory for ratepayers, Pennsylvania American, and the brewery, which helps put Pennsylvania on the map, supporting the 6th largest craft brewing industry in the nation. As both a proud Pennsylvanian and an aficionado of a good craft beer, I am only too happy to stoutly support the staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Let me jump in on that. I'm also, as you know, I'm a Chester County resident, so I'm proud to support this approval. The gentlemen, the founders of the company, Bill Kowaleski, I remember they started this company in the early 90s, and to see where they are today, it's truly amazing. And I'm proud to report that they're opening up their first brew pub in no other location than Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, which will be fully operational next year. And Commissioner Whitmer, I will invite you down to celebrate that milestone accomplishment. We'll start with a glass of PA American water, actually Chester Water Authority water, and then move into other libations.
I would look forward to that, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. Any further discussion? I sure hope there's no objections. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the statement of Commissioner Whitmer.
On page 3 of the carrying agenda, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the Bureau of Technical Utility Services recommendation in the proceeding involving ARM Energy Management, LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Law Bureau, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation in the proceeding involving the PA Universal Service Fund and Solex Inc.'s Administrator's Report, as well as the recommendation in the proceeding involving Act 129's Energy Efficiency Program Phase 2.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
And on the last page of the carrying agenda, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the joint application of the various parties to facilitate the merger proceeding involving the transfer of Equitable Gas to P&G companies, noting the statements of Commissioner Cawley as well as Commissioner Whitmer.
So moved.
Second.
Like to recognize Commissioner Cawley for purposes of his statement. Commissioner Cawley.
Thank you, Chairman. I ask that my lengthy statement be placed on the record as if I had read all of it. My statement primarily compliments the parties on a job well done. I heartily support the acquisition of Equitable by the owners of Peoples and Peoples TWP. However, this joint application also results in the transfer of Peoples' on-system storage and certain high-pressure, larger diameter distribution pipeline assets to Equitable's midstream unregulated affiliate. In addition, Peoples' critical Dominion Transmission Incorporated, DTI, storage and transportation upstream off-system storage assets used to support Peoples' historical least cost purchase gas cost strategies will be placed or will be replaced by a bundled firm sales service, once again to be provided by Equitable's unregulated affiliate, which in my view lacks the original flexibility afforded by these previous unbundled storage and transportation contracts on DTI. Because of Peoples' historic, very effective purchase gas cost asset portfolio, it's strongly anchored, which was strongly anchored in local production, and a very strong natural gas on-system and off-system storage position. Peoples historically has been very successful in providing gas supply service at a rate of 30% less than Equitable's. So this is worrisome to me. I urge Peoples to closely examine long-term least cost opportunities to loosen these tethers to restore the strong market liquidity and storage opportunities inherent in the pre-Equitable asset environment, and to do likewise with its recently acquired Equitable Natural Gas Distribution Company assets. In the end, I am confident that under the very able leadership of Morgan O'Brien, Peoples will aggressively pursue all opportunities to undo the effects of Equitable's asset acquisitions, and once again restore the optimal level of strategic interstate pipeline interconnections, natural gas storage, and local production assets, which have made Peoples a leader in the terms of least cost purchasing for its jurisdictional sales service and for the low prices that natural gas suppliers have provided to customers based on Peoples' strategic asset contracting and development plan. Peoples is also to be commended for its commitment to accelerated infrastructure investment, customer choice enhancements, expansion of local call center sourcing, and expansion of its low-income usage reduction programs. For all of these reasons, I support the joint application.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawley. Now I'd like to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like my statement entered into the record as if I had read it in its entirety. Before the Commission today is the joint petition for settlement regarding the application of Peoples Natural Gas, Peoples TWP, and Equitable Gas to approve transactions necessary for the transfer of Equitable to Peoples Natural Gas companies. In my view, I also congratulate the companies for a job well done, as I believe that this represents a win for consumers. By allowing the utility to focus on its distribution pipes, a number of synergies can be realized. Merging the operations of Peoples and Equitable is expected to start delivering $10 to $20 million in savings per year. The combined companies will avoid an estimated $162 million in pipeline replacement costs in areas where both companies have pipelines, sometimes running parallel down the same street. In addition, the merger will reduce current pipeline extension costs by $750,000 and annual leak surveillance costs by $50,000. Further, the settlement caps existing rates until 2018 and includes additional support for P&G's universal service programs, as noted by my colleague. Beyond these dollars and cents benefits, the transaction is an efficiency that is simple to understand. The merger will allow both Peoples and EQT to focus on their core businesses. EQT will concentrate on its burgeoning natural gas drilling and transmission business, while Peoples will devote its efforts solely to the function of distributing natural gas to residential, commercial, and industrial customers in southwestern Pennsylvania. The outcome is one I think that we can all support: the expansion of Pennsylvania's industry and a focus on delivering reliable and safe natural gas to consumers of the Commonwealth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. And let me add here this morning that the approval of this merger speaks to what I call a win-win, not only for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but for the greater Pittsburgh region. First off, you heard here this morning that the management of the merged entity is really fully invested in growing this business and making Pittsburgh the centerpiece of its operation. Let me also add that between the job creation, the future capital spending, the other synergies that were mentioned here this morning, this merger truly affords customers the ability to have safe, affordable, and reliable service for years to come. And as you heard Commissioner Whitmer mention, a rate freeze out to 2018, which is, as I like to call it, the goodwill begets goodwill here for customers. Simply put, I believe that this merger is clearly in the public interest. And let me conclude here this morning by thanking ALJ Hoyer for writing an excellent decision, our consumer advocate, Tanya McCluskey, our small business advocate who's with us here this morning, John Evans, and numerous other parties for working in a collaborative manner to reach a settlement that is clearly in the public interest. Any further discussion? Any objections? The motion to approve this merger is approved unanimously here this morning. That concludes our public meeting here this morning. I would remind everybody we're going to have a very brief Veterans Day ceremony here, and I think we have the chairs lined up here this morning. And on that note, we are adjourned.